Hello and welcome to the Patron Saints of Pop Culture podcast. As always, I am your co-saint, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I am Kathy Covarrubias. And today, let's talk about The Good Place Season 2, which just wrapped up, last week?
This week, yeah.
This week.
On Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen it yet, it's the whole series or season is available on Hulu. So if you have Hulu, you can watch it.
Yeah. So, as you can tell, this is our first episode with the new name. We apologize for the still slightly under the weather voices today. But we are doing our best, and we did take a week off, but we are now Patron Saints of Pop Culture podcast. So, now that we have that alliteration here, we're back.
Almost better than ever because I'm still sick.
Yes. So, spoiler alert for this current season. If you have not yet had a chance to go check it out, like Kathy said, it's on Hulu, so go check it out. Fantastic show. I know that season 1 is on Netflix now, and you can go binge watch all of that and then go listen to our podcast on season 1.
Yes.
When we were still the Honest Faith Conversations. So.
Yes. And I have to say that this is going to be one of those TV shows where you can actually watch it with kids.
Yeah.
And it would still be safe, which a lot of the stuff that we do is more like PG-13. So
yes.
Yeah, so watch it with your family.
Except for Happy Feet.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. So a review and summary, as always here. Let's see. My summary of the season is that this is Michael's more attempt to try to get his neighborhood to work, since it really didn't work that first attempt, and he goes through 200 attempts to make it work again. It doesn't really work, and he finally decides, I can't beat them, so I'm going to join them. Mm-hmm. And the second half of the season kind of switches up how things kind of go about in that, but that's the basic gist of it, I think.
Okay. My summary is that for season 2, the humans, or the dead humans, finally figure out, oh, wait, we're really in the bad place. We're not in the good place. And so, and this keeps happening over and over again because, Michael keeps trying to do it over and over again. And each time they figure it out. He's just getting frustrated, and they're also getting frustrated. And then they finally decide they're going to try to work together for once and see what happens.
Okay.
Okay.
My review is that I really enjoy the show. I think that where a lot of shows go through that sophomore slump where their second season isn't as good as the first season, I think that where a lot of series kind of go off the rails and really don't recapture that lightning in a bottle as the first season really does. I think that The Good Place really builds upon what they did in the first season, and they really should be a lot of series should be looking to The Good Place to see that, yeah, you can build on what you already did and make it better.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the second season a lot more than I enjoyed the first season, and I really enjoyed the first season. Mm-hmm. So I think this was, a good step, and I think great television, great writing, great acting. It was really good.
Yeah. My review is I too really, really enjoyed it. You don't see a lot of, sitcoms nowadays that have this level of humor in it. It's a mix between a lot of stuff. You do get the dumbed down humor, with Jason's Jason's lines, but then you also get the more clever humor when you interact with Tahani and with Chidi. So I think it's a nice mix of everything, and it's not the same old plot. You see a lot of the sitcoms now just kind of repeat the same storyline over and over and over again. But I think that what makes The Good Place different is that I feel like the writers didn't just write one season and pitch it to the network and
Yeah.
say, here's a show, and then see how they did the first season and see if that got picked up again. I feel like, because that's what happens, I feel like in sophomore slumps, is people are like, oh, people really like this show. Now we got to write more, And I feel like with The Good Place, it was almost as if the writers kind of had an idea already where they wanted to take the show.
Well, I think it's more that I think it's it makes our job easier because this is what the show is about. The show is basically moral philosophy.
Yeah.
How does moral philosophy fit into this whole idea? And so, when we're pulling moral philosophy out of pop culture, it really makes our job a whole lot easier. But I think that the writers really thought about this and really thought about these moral and ethical issues and how to really make it in a more farcical kind of way to really have people think about it rather than just being, this is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So this season, I really feel like it jumped into a really big issue, which I think is a meta issue, which we go back to season 1 where we talked about absurdism and how this was really based on an absurdist play, which, hold on just a second while I pulled up the notes from that. This is like all the way back in the beginning of our notebook.
I will distract them. La 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 da 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 da.
Yeah, it is Sartre's No Exit, with just kind of the absurdity of the world and the anguish of existence. Whereas the second season here really builds upon that and says, well, what about all of these other moral frameworks? And how do they really fit into the way that we see the world? And I think that they really took a big stab at religion this season, which I think was fantastic. And it wasn't a very overt way. It was very subtle. And I think that a lot of people will still enjoy the show without ever really seeing this jab at religion that I think is going on here.
And to be clear, it's not just one religion. Like, it's all religion is what they're poking fun at.
Yeah.
Any religion that has an idea of, like, an afterlife, for the most part.
And I think it's more evident in the finale episodes with the judge and with her just kind of saying, well, if you're doing this for moral dessert, then, you're not doing this for the right reasons and you can't get to the good place.
Yeah.
That getting points is all about, just being good for good's sake.
Yeah, being genuine.
Which I really want to bring up my upbringing and my basis in religion to make this point. Is that I was brought up in a very conservative, very Southern. It's not really a denominational basis, but it was a very non-denominational Southern church, which really taught this whole idea that you can't get to heaven unless you're good, but also that's not what the gospel is about, that, Jesus paid it all for everybody, but you still have to be good to get into heaven, which is a weird morality system, is saying that nobody can be good, but you got to be good, but nobody can be good.
Yeah, like
So
everybody is a sinner.
Yeah, but you have to be good.
Yeah.
And the point was made on that basis of being good, and always it had this overtone of that moral desserts kind of thing, is that you don't do good because you want to get to heaven, but you also can only do good because you're already saved kind of thing, which is this weird, really like mind pretzeling kind of idea.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me.
That religion, that's the religion that I grew up with. And I think this is what a lot of Christianity, and by the way, I'm just going to throw this out there. We're no longer just going to be like one section is controversial, because what we talk about is controversial stuff.
Yeah.
But with this is that religion does not have the moral monopoly. That you cannot just be, that religion of all sorts does not have the market cornered on moralism.
No.
Or being a moral person or having good ethics. And I think this is something that especially the Western Church has done a horrible thing with, is saying, oh, well, they're an atheist, so they must be completely immoral. And even today, just today, I saw on social media, on Facebook, there was this post that said that if you're a liberal, you're not Christian, you're not following Christ, and you're being, you're just completely out there. Have no morals, in essence, because you're liberal. Which I'm like, no.
That is totally not the case. I mean, I could go on about that, but that's a little bit more political.
Well, I think that, this is something that this show does fantastically well in doing, is finding these absurdist kind of ideas in all of these ethics and moral quandaries that they go through. And I love how they started the season off with the trolley problem.
Yeah.
And how, I mean, a couple of shows have done the trolley problem here in the past year, which I find odd. That, that a couple of shows are picking up the same idea.
Yeah, like,
Kimmy Schmidt.
Yeah.
Did the trolley
when she was
problem.
a cross guard?
Yes.
Sorry.
To become a cross guard, she was like, no. And really discovers what Michael discovers here throughout the series, is that he figured out the trolley problem. Mm-hmm. Was you don't make a choice, you sacrifice yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's the choice. That's how you figure it out, is that you are the sacrifice. And I think this boils down to a lot of what the doctrinal statements in religion kind of deal with. That especially, this is what Jesus was saying. And I think this is that one passage in John that I really love, is where Jesus says, no greater love has any man than this, than a man lays down his life for his friends. And I think that is the crux of the entire gospel. And I think this is something that religions of all kind of backgrounds can take note in. This is the whole idea, is that golden rule, which goes back 4,000 years. And it's not, just Christianity. This is for all religions. Yep. All religions has that same rule of treat others as you want to be treated.
Yep.
And so here in this show, I think they did a fantastic job of doing this in a way that really illustrates the prime absurdity of all of this, and why we're just arguing about all of these silly little things when it comes down to the crux of just don't be a dick. And so,
I'm not the one that you're going to have to put the profanity thing on.
For dick? Dick is not a bad word.
Well, I don't know. You don't hear it very often on network television.
Yeah, you do.
Well, I don't pay attention then.
Yes. Well, and I think that this is something that I've written about recently, is that I think that we've gotten way off the point of life when we've started to argue about these finer points of doctrine, rather than how do we be good? How can we just be good human beings to one another? And I think that's what all religions have set out to do. And this is what moral philosophy is all about, is trying to figure out how do we be good, rather than how do we figure out how to be good.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's the prime question of how do we be good. So it's not doctrinal at all. There is no doctrine in it. It's just be good.
Yeah. Yeah, but that also brings up the question too, what is good then?
Yeah.
Because in so many people's minds, it could be one thing or like the exact opposite, depending on the circumstance. And, some people may argue and say that all three options in the trolley problem are all valid, options, and not one of them is better than any of the other ones, because no matter what, somebody's going to die.
Well, no matter what, somebody's going to die, but, you have the 5, or you have the 1, or you have...
The 1.
Or the 1, which...
The 1.
Which, and I think that's the only thing that you can weigh in the trolley problem, is your own self.
Yeah.
You can only weigh, like, how do you view your future and all of this other stuff. That's why it is the solution to the problem, is sacrificing yourself, is because you're the only one you can weigh.
Oh, yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I'm just saying that other people may
could argue the other
exactly.
2 points.
Yeah. So let's kind of talk about the characters now in the show. Because at one point in time, like especially during the first season, when you figure out that they're all in the bad place, you're like, wait a second, what? Like some of these people are like, I would view them to be good people. So if they're in the bad place, then like what was it about it that wasn't good? Like why weren't they considered to be good? Well, obviously, let's talk about Eleanor. Like she is like the clear cut. She was just not a good person.
Yeah. She
was rude. She was mean. She was vindictive. She was just a capital B, in my opinion. And there wasn't anything around it. Like, it was clear.
Yeah.
That she just wasn't good.
No, she didn't care about anybody else but herself.
No, yeah, she was very selfish. But even then, it was almost like she would self-sabotage herself.
Yes.
I mean, she wasn't in a very good career. I mean... She was basically scamming people, and I know it was money, but, she probably wasn't, doing the top-notch job that she could have done. And I'm sure her car insurance was just, like, through the roof. but like, even for her being, like, so self-indulged, it actually becomes a bad thing in some circumstances. Like, it's okay to have a little self-interest, but she was a little too consumed with it. And then there's Jason. Jason
is just an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, sure, he did commit robbery. That's true, or at least tried to commit robbery. But deep down, like, I don't think he would be someone who would, like, purposely hurt somebody's feelings.
Well, I think this is the whole idea why theologians of all different faiths have argued this point of the age of accountability.
Yeah.
Is that when is somebody actually accountable for their actions? And for Jason, I really don't think he reached that. I think he's just, like he doesn't know what's right and wrong.
Mm-mm. Well, I think he knows robbing something is illegal, but I don't think he sees it as why it's illegal. Why is it wrong?
Exactly.
Because in the end, he's really just trying to help himself and his buddies out. But, like, I can't blame him because he just doesn't get it. He doesn't see, like, the consequences of his actions, I think, is what it really boils down to.
Well, yeah, and then there would be people who would argue the question of, well, does that excuse him from doing those things if he doesn't know what right and wrong is?
I mean, legally, he's an adult, so no, it doesn't excuse him.
Yeah, see, that's a whole lawmaker problem for people who are much smarter than I am.
Yes, so figure that out. And then, of course, there's Tahani. Oh, gorgeous, gorgeous, generous Tahani. Like, her book is riddled with good deeds. Like, she donates like crazy. She always puts on these parties, like, for charities, and she knows a bunch of, like, really high-profile people. Like, it really seems like that she has done a lot of good in the world.
Yeah.
You'd think she would have, but then why is she in the bad place? And then we find out that she did it all, for the wrong reasons. She was doing it to kind of boast her own self-image.
Yep.
And that in itself is also selfish. Would you say that it's as selfish as Eleanor?
Yes, and I think that it really gets down to what the whole crux of this second season was that moral deserts kind of thing is why are you doing good? If the reason is for your moral desert, then why?
Yeah. And then, of course, Chidi. Like, again, like, I would see Chidi, and I wouldn't think that he would be somebody who would go into the bad place. I mean, he studies philosophy. He's a professor. I mean, how?
Well, there are some pretty skeezy professors out there.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But I mean, like when we learn about him, he doesn't seem like somebody who would. Well, here's the thing: he doesn't want to harm anybody. Like he knows it's wrong to harm somebody.
Yeah.
However, I think because he knows all of these different types of philosophy, and he studied this extensively, he doesn't know which one is the good one, and so he can't make a decision. And so sometimes, as we saw in season 1, or was it this season? I can't remember. But you find out that him not making a decision hurt a lot of his friendships. Like, it ended up hurting people.
It was the first season.
Yeah, but he ended up hurting a lot of people just because he simply couldn't make a gosh darn decision.
Well, I think this is Chidi is also the embodiment of an anxiety disorder, especially with when it comes to those decisions. Is when you start spiraling into those thought processes. It's really kind of spiraling off and thinking about, well, what if I do this? What if I do this? What if I do this?
Yeah.
If who's going to be hurt in the end? And I think that's a big thing too for that as well. Is he wrong because he's having the disability to do that, to make those decisions quickly, because he actually has to think about it first?
Well, and here's the thing too, like, I know it takes a lot of work, but it seems like he is somebody who has a pretty high level of anxiety. But when it takes you, 75 minutes to choose a hat? A hat.
Yes.
Because he was so concerned, which one is it? How big of a test this is. And it
He
turns
just
out
needed to pick a hat.
he just needed to pick one. I mean, but the thing is, he picked one, which
Yes.
is actually progress, because before this, he probably wouldn't have picked one. It would have just gone on his way. And would have been nope, no hat.
Yeah.
Which in itself is actually a decision that he's made,
Yeah.
but still, again, for most of these people, except for Eleanor, I wouldn't have imagined them to be in the bad place, but with their personalities, they still ended up there. So then, with all of these, what is good then? I think we kind of already talked about it, but we can talk about it again. Essentially, just don't be an a-hole to people.
Well, and I think that, yes, of course, don't be an a-hole to people, but I think really it boils down to living your life, living the life that you best can without hurting other people, without hurting your environment around you, to live in harmony with everything. Mm-hmm. And I think this is where Buddhist philosophy really plays into this, is that idea of harmonious living with everything around you and everything, with all of creation, with all of the cosmos, which is why I also think that Buddhism also plays really well into a lot of other religious ideas, because Buddhism is more a way of life rather than a religion, if you were to ask me. So.
Well, and I also have to say we learned from Chidi. Another thing that we gotta do in order to be good sometimes is to don't get hung up on the small details of things.
Of course.
Don't overthink things sometimes. Sometimes it just doesn't matter. Just pick a hat.
Well, there are no good options in some scenarios. And I think that's really the utilitarian idea of the trolley problem, is that there are no good options. That you just got to make one.
Yeah.
And I think that is the way around it, is to make the only informed decision you can in that utilitarian case, which is to choose yourself, to sacrifice yourself. And I think this is something that Kimmy Schmidt found out in Kimmy Schmidt, and there is the cast. Michael found out, and kind of told Eleanor about it. I think Eleanor found out again through her return to living, and in the final episode of this season.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, can I say the finale, the season finale for this season, was one of the the toughest cliffhangers for me. Like, it wasn't like the Walking Dead, who's going to die cliffhanger kind of anxiety-inducing thing, but it was like, whoa, wait, I want the rest of the story. I want to know what happens.
No, and that's a great thing, though, because it keeps us tuned in. But I think that you're right. And also, too, I think with Tahani and with Jason, like, what they tell us and how to be good is don't have too much self-interest. And to actually think about how it is going to affect other people, which I think is Jason's thing, too. Because, again, Tahani, she did great works. I mean, she donated to a lot of charities, which in itself, I mean, if we had more money, I wish I could donate to all of the good charities that I possibly could. Mm-hmm. So I do commend her on that. But when you're doing it to make yourself look good, is it really then a good deed?
Exactly. Because
then it becomes a selfish thing. And out of all of these people, the person who probably is the goodest, the bestest, okay. The nicest, the person who deserves the good place the most is Janet. Because she does do a little bit of self-serving, when she creates her own,
I think that's
boyfriend
after she's evolved to that point, since she was rebooted 200 some odd times.
But still, she's still very she's still not self-serving. She's still very self-sacrificing. Look how hard it was for her to be a bad Janet.
Yeah.
But she did it. But she did it because she knew that in order to have the plan succeed, she just had to do it. She had to get over her hang-up, and she had to be bad for just a little while. But really, that is the good thing. Sometimes you kind of have to, I don't know, not necessarily lose your morals, but maybe kind of take it a step back for just a second in order to do the right thing.
Yes. Well, and I think this is something that brings us around to the principles of the parable. I don't know. I just felt like coming up with more alliterative names for things, since we are now the patron saints of pop culture. So,
yep, that's our name.
But the principles from this parable definitely are the moralism or religion, and I think this is something that. What I was going to say earlier is that we've created a lot of moral deserts rather than moral desserts, because it was moral desserts.
Yep.
But within churches, within a lot of religious communities, is we've created these moral deserts that there really is no morals in them. That they are all very self-serving. They're all very. Look at me, and give money to us. Let's keep our church doors open, but we don't do anything to deserve it.
No. How many churches do we see people give tons of money to, and how much of it actually goes to, feeding the homeless?
Well, and this is something that I didn't get into at the time, but I think we talked about a little bit on our podcast when that was going on with the hurricanes in Houston. Was the hurricane in Houston, because there was only one. They didn't have multiple.
There was the other one was in Florida.
Yes, the other ones were Florida. And and
Puerto Rico, too.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, still needs your aid. So if you're going to donate to a charity, donate to one that's going to be helping with Puerto Rico, because a lot of people still do not have electricity.
Exactly. Well, this is something that proves this point as well, but... the big thing of that time was Joel Osteen's church.
Yeah.
That they didn't open their doors to those who were displaced in Houston. And that's where he is Houston. And, it's a massive, massive church, which it goes to prove the point of many of those mega churches is that they're really just self-serving. Mm-hmm. They're really moral deserts. They're not there to do anything but make you feel good about yourself. And that's not religion.
No.
feeling good about your, and this is, by the way, I have to say this because it really, really annoys me when people do this, is saying, oh, well, this is what the new liberal Christianity is. It just makes you feel good about stuff. And I'm like, no, this is what evangelicals are doing. Evangelicals have been doing this for a long time. They've been doing this whole make you feel good about yourself rather than actually doing the work of religion, which is being good to people.
Yep, and not doing it to be self-serving. Just doing it because it's the right thing.
Exactly. And that brings us to the major point, is just be good. Mm-hmm. It means don't be an a-hole.
Yeah. And even if it's going to take you a step back sometimes, even if it, because to be honest, we're all human, and sometimes being good is hard.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you do want to curse out, the customer service rep because you are upset that your bill is so high, but just take a step back. Just remember, they're not the ones that increased your bill. Who knows? There could be multiple different reasons why it increased, but it wasn't that one person. So how is it really going to help you yelling at them?
Maybe a story from personal experience.
Yeah. Well, I've been in customer service all of my career, so I can pull it from different avenues. But still, sometimes it's so hard. It's so hard not to yell and scream, and it's really, really hard to be nice at that point because you have to remember it is not their fault. You just gotta remember that sometimes.
Be kind.
Yeah.
Really see the human that you're talking to. This is especially hard to do on the internet these days, is that we dehumanize each other. And this is something that I just wrote about too, is that we really just kind of do not see the human on the other side of the keyboard.
No. And we automatically assume now that if somebody doesn't agree with us and they're a stranger, oh, it's just a bot. Just don't be a bot. You're clearly a bot.
Well, that's mainly on Twitter.
But still, Twitter is where most of them like to hang out. It's that or troll. Don't be a troll.
Don't be a troll.
But
don't be an a-hole. Don't be a troll.
But sometimes there is going to be that person behind the computer who really does feel these things, and maybe instead of just oh, you're just a troll and ignoring them or just brushing them off, maybe bring up a conversation, ask them a question, not passive aggressively, but legit. Okay, well, why do you feel that way? You would be surprised how calmer people get when you're just okay, tell me more about why you feel this way. Tell me more about what you see.
And I want to tie this all back into the show a little bit here, and I think this is something that again, I think the writers did a fantastic job this season of doing this, is that they've been taking a lot from different moral philosophers throughout the entire show. You have Kant, you have the absurdists, you have Descartes, you have basically you have this large list of philosophers that they're pulling from, which I think is fantastic. It is helping to train the base, TV watcher in America about moral philosophy, which I think is brilliant.
I learned more about philosophy with this show than in my actual philosophy class. But then again, I also quit that class after a week because it
makes it entertaining.
No, but the amount of reading I had to do in 1 week was undoable. There was no way I was going to do this. So
that was a lot of reading.
I was like, no, sorry. I'll take world religions instead. Thank you.
But I think this is what was great about the second season, is that they brought it all in, and this is something, things that Eleanor said to Chidi a few times, is then why?
Yeah.
It's just, in these instances, you got to throw all of that out and just be good.
Yeah.
And you know what's best. You really do know what's best. And in that instant, it's really upon you because you're the one that's in the situation, not the philosophers. And I think this is something that the writers did a brilliant job of doing this. And because they were able to say it through the voice of Eleanor in the show. And whereas Chidi is the voice of the philosophers throughout the entire show. And I think it's really a great mix of teaching both moral philosophy and ethics, and also how does that, and what we call hermeneutics or exegesis, is how you pull that out into your everyday life. How do you pull out from those philosophers? How do you make those choices?
Yeah.
And I think it's really simple. There is no doctrine to it. It's just, you're the one that's there. Make the decision. Do it. Be good.
And they bring it up in the season finale. It's, you have that little voice that tells you that what you're doing is wrong. Mm-hmm. Everybody has that voice. Maybe you should listen to it occasionally.
Exactly. And I can't wait to see season 3. I can't wait to see how they really kind of pull this out there. It's going to be more of Chidi training Eleanor now in
the
real life.
Yeah.
And
where there's no stakes.
There are no stakes.
Well,
Exactly.
Well, they don't know that there's stakes. There really is some stakes, as we know, but they don't know that.
Yeah. Well, it's moral dessert, not steaks.
Oh, I prefer steak. Well, no, I want desserts and steaks.
Desserts and steaks. Okay. All right. So, we've got a lot of wrapping up to do, so we've got to take a few minutes here to talk about all of this stuff. With our feedback schedule, we are going to be doing a little bit different since we did take that week off due to illness. We are going to be doing the Black Mirror Archangel. Hopefully by not this coming Tuesday, but next Tuesday, Thor Ragnarok will be available on digital download so that we can actually watch it, so that we can actually talk about it.
Sorry about that, guys. Kids, what can I say?
We've also got Altered Carbon on the docket for stuff that we need to watch, and I know that just came out this last week on Netflix, so we're giving ourselves time to actually watch it. If you have anything to say about this episode or previous episodes of Honest Faith Conversations, or even if you want to talk about The Good Place, give us a call, leave us a voicemail at 720-372-3879. You can also send us a text at that place. You can also find us on social media to give us your feedback.
Yeah.
You can email us as well. The email is still honestfaithconvos@gmail.com. You can find us on the website, which is thehonestfaith.com. You can also find us on social media. Social media, we are facebook.com/realhonestfaith. On Twitter, we are @realhonestfaith. And, Tumblr, Reddit, all those other things that people don't really use all that much anymore anyway. So we don't really need to mention it. Also, we're doing something brand new for you guys. We have got going on what it's going to be on Patreon exclusively is a Let's Play. We started playing Divinity Original Sin, and we are streaming it on Twitch. So if you really want to see the raw, unfiltered footage of us playing a game instead of us editing it and only showing you the interesting parts rather than us.
I'm just laughing because, because you're going to be able to see like how we actually interact in these things, because we're trying to like be a team, and like he has a good idea, but then I also have a good idea, and then sometimes I will make a mistake and like just throw things totally off, but then he'll make a mistake, and so sometimes I don't talk because I'm kind of upset with how the game's going. But so just a fair warning if you're going to watch it on Twitch that.
Yeah, the raw unfiltered is raw and unfiltered.
Yes, if you really want to know how we interact, that you could check that out.
Some of that will actually be edited out for the Patreon cast. So if you just want to watch the Let's Play with edited and us actually talking about the game and actually trying to be a team on this, then check us out on Patreon. And in fact, that would be a good thing for you to do, too, because we actually just had to buy a new computer because our laptop is dying now.
Yes.
So it would be helpful to, help to kind of combat some of the costs that we're putting into this, because we do this out of love. We don't really make anything off of this.
We don't make anything off of it. It's not even a really.
Yeah.
We just don't.
We have 13 listeners, and we may have lost some because we changed our name.
But which is why you should subscribe.
Yes. So, go on Patreon and become a patron of ours. And we'd really, 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 really be appreciative. We'll shout out your name. We'll do all that other stuff. But you also get access to that exclusive Patreon-only content, which would be the Let's Play of Divinity Original Sin. This will be something that's ongoing. And it won't just stop with that game. We'll do other games in the future as well.
Yeah.
So, check us out on Twitch for the raw, unfiltered stuff, or Patreon for the stuff that's going to be better because it's not going to be a lot of silence. So.
Yeah. Oh, and I should mention, too, anywhere that you see us on social media, please give us a review. We would just love it if you would just, take a minute or two and just, rate us however you would like, because I'm not going to dictate how you feel about us.
Yes, just don't be an a-hole.
Yeah, just don't be an a-hole.
All right, with all of that being said, we invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.